It was late winter in a small village nestled between the dense forests of rural Japan. The ground was frozen hard, the wind biting at the bones of anyone foolish enough to be out after dark. The villagers, their lives shaped by ancient superstitions and deep-rooted customs, spoke in hushed whispers of a creature that roamed the woods in the darkest months. No one could say when the first sightings began. Some said it was born from the bones of soldiers who died without proper rites. Others claimed it was an ancient curse, a restless spirit of hunger that never knew satisfaction. But the truth was far worse than any of the legends. One evening, a young man named Takeshi ventured out into the woods to cut firewood for his family. It was a task he had done countless times before, but tonight the air felt colder than usual, the moon almost unnaturally full. As he made his way deeper into the trees, a sudden unease gripped him. The crunch of his boots on the snow was the only sound he could hear, until in the distance he thought he heard something else, the faintest whisper. A low, almost imperceptible sound like the scraping of bone on bone. Takeshi paused, listening. It came again, louder this time, like a distant growl. His heart raced, he told himself, trying to shake off the chill creeping up his spine, but something inside him told him to turn back. Yet he pressed on, convinced it was just his imagination. He'd only taken a few more steps when the trees ahead of him seemed to shift. He froze. The wind had died down, leaving a suffocating silence in its wake. Then he saw it, a flicker of movement in the shadows between the trunks, something tall, towering over the trees, hunched and bending at impossible angles. Takeshi's breath caught in his throat. His eyes widened as the shape became clearer. It was massive, a skeletal figure made entirely of bones, not just animal bones, but human bones, skull after skull, rib after rib, withered hands reaching out from the hollow sockets of its head. It was the giant skeleton born from the bodies of those who died without proper burial. The creature's eyes glowed with an eerie, hunger-driven light, and its jaws creaked open as it slowly turned toward him. Takeshi's legs trembled, his body paralyzed by a primal fear. The Gashadokuro raised its massive head, the sound of its bones rattling, echoing through the forest like a death knell. The creature moaned in a voice that sounded like the scraping of bone against bone. It took a step toward him and then another, the ground shaking beneath each footfall. Takeshi stumbled back, heart pounding. He knew he needed to run, but his legs wouldn't obey. The Gashadokuro's gaze locked onto him, its eyes gleaming with malevolent hunger. It was starved. It had been feeding on the souls of the dead for centuries, and now it had found a living soul to feast upon. The creature's massive skeletal hand shot out, fingers like sharpened claws, and took hold of Takeshi's arm. He screamed, trying to pull free, but the grip was too strong. He felt his body being lifted off the ground as if he weighed nothing at all. The Gashadokuro's mouth opened wider, and from deep within the cavernous dark of its throat, Takeshi heard the echo of countless souls wailing in agony. "Not yet! Not yet!" the creature whispered, its voice as dry as dust. "I have waited too long to feast!" Takeshi's mind raced. His family, his village. He couldn't die like this, not without a fight. Summoning every ounce of willpower, he drew his knife from his belt and drove it into the Gashadokuro's hand. The blade clattered against the bones, but the creature didn't flinch. Instead, it pulled him closer, the smell of decay and death flooding his senses. But then, just as all hope seemed lost, something strange happened. The Gashadokuro paused, its massive skull tilted as if sensing something in the air. Takeshi's heart pounded, and he felt a strange, sharp tingling in the back of his neck. The creature released him, dropping him to the snow with a thud. He gasped for breath, barely able to comprehend what had just happened. The Gashadokuro turned its hollow eyes toward the sky, where the full moon now bathed the forest in a cold silver light. Takeshi stumbled backward, his mind still in a fog. The Gashadokuro's skeletal form seemed to tremble as it looked at the moon. For a moment it seemed as if the creature was afraid. The curse. "The curse is breaking," the creature whispered, its voice full of desperation. Suddenly it let out a deafening screech, a sound like thousands of bones cracking and splintering at once. The ground shook violently beneath Takeshi's feet. The Gashadokuro's body began to disintegrate, the bones that made up its frame turning to dust and scattering in the wind. Takeshi shielded his eyes, trying to comprehend what was happening. When the dust settled, the creature was gone, vanished into the night, leaving only an empty forest in its wake. Takeshi stood there, breathing heavily, too stunned to move, and then just before dawn he understood the Gashadokuro wasn't hunting him out of malice. It was hunting because it was hungry, and it had been hungry for centuries, but something had changed. The curse that bound it to the earth had weakened, and with the first light of day, the creature's hunger would be sated, its body reduced to nothing more than forgotten bones. But Takeshi knew something darker still lingered in the shadows. The hunger of Gashadokuro was not a hunger that could be fully sated. And as the moon waxed and waned, and the years passed, Gashadokuro would rise again, seeking more souls to feed its endless void. And it would always remember Takeshi, the one it almost consumed, the one who survived.